a jury did find, in fact, for Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. So they were both liable for defamation. Now, Johnny Depp, there were 3 findings in his favor for defamation. So meaning, 3 statements that Amber Heard had made. And then as it relates to Amber Heard's defamation claims, she was only successful on one of the claims. But the bottom line just being they both won and they both lost. So then as it relates to the damages awarded, and this kind of breaks down because, as it relates to the damages awarded, we had 10 million in compensatory damages awarded to Johnny Depp, and then an additional 5 million in punitive damages, but he's not getting that whole 5 million. Why is that, Tim?
Yeah, so apparently in the jurisdiction that they're at, there is a cap on the punitive damages of $350,000. So the court invoked that right away after the reading of the verdict. So the net for Johnny Depp right now is $10,003,000. Well, I shouldn't say the net, but the amount awarded to Johnny Depp is $10,350,000.
That's right. And then conversely, the jury awarded 2 million in compensatory damages to Amber Heard, and then she did not get any punitive damages. So, what's likely going to happen at this point is that there will be what's called an offset, right? So the attorneys typically will come together and figure out, how is this amount going to be paid? I don't know if Amber Heard has 10,300,050 lying around and she wants to just make a lump sum and make this go away, but very likely this will be, something of we're going to have a settlement agreement and a payment plan, and the amount owed by Depp will be offset from what she owes.
Yeah, absolutely. The law of offset applies pretty much in every jurisdiction. So the net there is $8,350,000 to Johnny Depp. At least you just kind of do the math there. But there are a lot of things that can happen. The judge can also adjust the compensatory damages if she wants to, or upon motion. There can be an appeal that can happen that might lower those amounts. There's quite a few things happen that can adjust that amount, including the attorneys getting together and say enough is enough, let's just settle on a number and be done with all this.
Maybe Elon Musk will put up the money. We did hear that Amber Heard and Elon Musk did have a short relationship, and he did make a nice donation to one of her suggested charities in the amount of $500,000. That's, I don't know, maybe he has some cash to throw around to help her out. So, just to recap, when Depp had originally filed this lawsuit, he was seeking $50 million, right, as his baseline calculation of damages. Amber Heard sought 100 million. And so the fact that now we had, again, it is technically 15 million was awarded. That's not the total amount that will actually be received. But nonetheless, why so much less was awarded to, let's say, Johnny Depp to start?
Yeah, who knows is the quick answer. But the jury, they're allowed to award whatever damages they want in a defamation case, and they don't have to abide by the statutory limits. So that's why you saw that reduction. A lot of it could be is that, at least in Amber Heard's case, there wasn't a whole lot of talk about damages. What was the justification for that $100 million? Johnny Depp, on the other hand, he had a damages expert come on, and he at least showed a loss of roughly $40 million. The jury essentially ignored all that and said, you know what, you guys make enough money, you have plenty of money, we're going to make this something, but we're not going to make it about money. And so they awarded what they awarded.
Yeah, no, and Amber Heard's damages expert came in and she kind of got ripped apart, to be honest, later on by rebuttal witnesses, because she just went on the stand and she goes, well, comparatively, I'm looking at other actresses. This is what I think they made, or that I read that they made. I think Amber Heard should have been paid something equivalent. But then she kind of got ripped apart by not providing foundation for that, right? So actually looking at what were they making prior to, and specifically things like when they did a big comic book character role, their breakout role, which was what happened for Amber Heard in the Aquaman movie. So, her expert witness unfortunately did not do a great job of establishing damages. But at the end of the day, we know that, Johnny Depp was successful, right, as it related to, the defamation claim. So, yeah, here we are. And so from here, what happens next?
Well, that's what I was getting into a little bit here. So basically, there could be some motion work. So for example, one of the parties could file a motion for a judgment notwithstanding the verdict. That's probably possible. They call that a Rule 59 motion, but basically, or a motion for a new trial. A lot of things can happen. Some motion work can happen in usually the first 10 to 15 days. Generally speaking, you have about 30 days to appeal. You can appeal any judgment. Now, the judgment won't actually be entered into this case. The judgment wasn't entered today. It was just the verdicts were entered today. So the attorneys will do the work where they'll apply for maybe attorney fees if that's applicable in Virginia. Usually in tort cases, it's not. Or they'll at least put proposed judgments together so they can get that entered. From when that's entered, there's 30 days to appeal. But before you get all there, there might be some motion work, there might be some settlement negotiation. So that's probably the immediacy that you're going to see right now.
The jury was starstruck. Now, we talked about this a little bit on the live stream earlier because, quite frankly, what was our opinions of the ruling? I think Tim and I were kind of in the same boat in that we felt that Johnny may have been successful, maybe on like one claim, maybe two claims. But the fact that he essentially had a windfall was very surprising to both of us. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I've said all along in a couple of these interviews, and even just my thoughts around the office, is that everybody's going to lose this. And the main reason is because if you can get the jury to believe even one instance of abuse occurred, and I think that's believable, then Johnny Depp loses his claims. So I think the jury kind of deviated the jury instructions on that. The other thing is that, at least in Virginia, you have to prove malice by clear and convincing evidence. That's a really high standard. I say this over and over again, but the clear and convincing evidence standard is the same standard the state has to meet in order to take someone's kids away. And of course, being a parent is one of the most protected rights in the United States. So to meet that burden upon all the evidence and all the videos and all the recordings that we heard, I think it fell short on that burden. So I was very surprised that any of the claims actually won. And the way to kind of look at this is there's really 6 verdicts, right? There were three statements asserted on each side, and 4 of the 6 statements met that burden, and that is surprising to me.
Yeah, no, and remember, because the most simple way that Amber Heard's attorney could have kind of stated it in their closing is, and they did in their own way, if you find that there was even one instance of Johnny Depp abusing Amber Heard in any of the ways that are possible, physically, sexually, emotionally, then her statements about being an abuse victim are true. And so, right, to your point that this was such a high standard,
Right.
and, whether you think Amber Heard was embellishing or just straight up lying or whatever your opinion is, looking at all of the evidence, the audio, the video, and even hearing from, for example, the couples counselor for Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, hearing her say, in fact, there was this mutual abuse and toxicity in the relationship. So despite all of that, the jury decided there was never an instance of Johnny Depp abusing Amber Heard. Therefore, she lost on, or he won on the defamation claims.
Yeah, exactly. Well put. And that's the surprising part. I mean, not that she was believable in every respect, because I think there was some exaggeration, some embellishment. And I think her attorneys fell short. I mean, that last picture that they really showed of her, that really showed, the nose injury, that should have been in an opening argument, to be honest with you. That should have been shown first to the jury. They just kind of made the jury wait all that time. And I think at that point they were over it. And one of the cool things about being in trial in this situation, one of the first things that happened after that verdict is you heard the judge say, we're going to put the jury back in the jury room one last time before we release you. The reason they do that is because the juries have an opportunity to talk to the attorneys if they want to, and vice versa. So those attorneys got to get some of the insight. What was good about the case? What was bad about the case? Why they came to their ultimate finding.
But the jury doesn't have to speak with the attorneys, right? They can.
No, they do not. They do not. And sometimes only a couple will stay. Maybe 1 or 2 will stay, or, depending on whether or not they make the decision, is anybody going to stay? Sometimes that happens as well, too. Now, I did hear later in the day, correct me if I'm wrong, I think one juror's already agreed to an interview. Is that true?
I haven't heard that yet.
Okay.
But I mean, I think we're all going to be watching that. If so, American King on YouTube, Depp can't get his reputation back now. He is done. To a degree. I mean, quite frankly, for the amount of money, and I saw a question just asking how much money you think has been paid. Well, we know that Amber Heard said up till today, or this would have been midway through trial, that she had paid $6 million to her attorneys. That was only her attorneys. Johnny Depp has paid significantly more for a second trial that was handled in the UK. But back to they can't get their reputation back. That's true. But I think that's why Johnny Depp wanted to go through this process, because he wanted to be heard and he wanted to have an opportunity to have to get his reputation back, essentially. But I think both of their reputations are kind of in the can right now, and Johnny Depp, if anything, has a silver lining for being vindicated. But yeah, and okay, guys, let me go back to the chat. Your comments are coming in real fast. I appreciate it. If you have any more legal questions, you're always welcome to do the super chat, and I will go to the top, and I will see that. The jury was in love with Johnny Depp. Will Amber Heard ever be in movies again? Joel asks on YouTube. I mean, look, I think it's a matter of time, right? And it's different for everyone. I feel like in this culture, cancel culture that we live in, that right now the majority of everyone hates Amber Heard and they feel a certain way about her. And so I don't think any movie studio is going to want to touch her for a while, but it doesn't mean she can't come back. It doesn't mean that she can't still have a career. At least that's what I've seen. Some terrible things have come out about actors and singers and people in the entertainment industry, and they do seem to recover with enough time that goes by.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I also thought it was kind of an interesting, just from a public perspective, to watch just, the reactions of the verdicts outside the courthouse. I mean, you had people chanting, Johnny, Johnny.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was so interesting because, it seemed almost opposite of these types of trials prior to. It seemed right away, even the media and such would jump right on board, and there was some bias towards Johnny. So I disagree a little bit that his reputation is ruined, because it seems to have gotten better and more support through this process, which is, I guess, what he wanted. So I wouldn't be surprised if somebody picks him up right away and he gains some projects because of this. We already saw him playing over the weekend. I mean, I'm sure that show sold out if it wasn't already sold out, right? Yeah. So
that's right. So Johnny as a touring musician.
Right. And, Amber's not working, at least right now, and I think she's lost some deals. So I think she bared the brunt of this, which is bad in any sense, really.
All right. So, question: with the names being sealed for a year, can the jurors identify themselves? So the answer is yes. And so Tim Heard, we haven't been able to confirm this. That one juror has agreed to an interview. Here's the thing: I bet news outlets are offering a pretty penny to get these jurors to speak. Now, they're not supposed to, essentially really know who it is, but they can stop these jurors on the way out, right? And they can say, "This is what I'm going to give you," and try to get them to agree. We talked about a potential book deal. Could the jurors or any of the jurors go out and have a big book deal to talk about their experience? The answer is yes.
Yeah, absolutely. The jury is the press is in the same room as the jury each and every day. So they know them, they know what they look like, and they've stared at them basically for the 7 weeks. Now, there's an absolute no contact rule with the jury by any media, anybody, quite frankly, except for judicial staff. That is completely inappropriate. And in fact, we've seen in some cases where the media is shunned out. That whole, not that reporter, but that whole outlet is not allowed in the courtroom anymore. However, as soon as the jury is released from that last deliberation room congregation, if you will, anybody can approach them at any time. And every media person rushed, hounding around the courthouse to see where they were going to be released, if they can at least talk to them and get their impressions.
Now, Michael on Facebook thinks we will never see Amber acting again. We will see. And, anything could happen at this point. I feel like some people, even in the music industry, right? So we have a wardrobe malfunction by Janet Jackson during a Super Bowl halftime performance. And, Justin Timberlake is on the stage with her. He experienced the same thing, but she's the one that suffered. She's the one whose career went into the tank. So everyone is affected differently. And, I don't really think Janet ever fully recovered from that. So it just depends on what can happen. Here we go on YouTube. Depp was smart. He came in with makeup and eyeliner. I don't know if that's being mean. So Netflix is making the movie version of Depp versus Heard. You're in charge of casting. Who would you select for the parties, lawyers, etc.? I'm not in casting. That is not my job. I'm a lawyer here. I'll just make sure everyone's
Oh, I'm
signing the right
definitely one of.
contract.
I'm the lead Depp attorney. I'll cast myself for that.
All right. Yeah. No. I guess. Obviously. I would definitely take Vasquez any day. I think a
There
lot
you
of
go.
little girls are going to law school now and are very inspired by her. She had her Star is Born moment for sure. Rum Diaries 2 coming soon, right? So Rum Diaries being the movie that Johnny Depp and Amber Heard met on, and then later in their press junket fell in love, and it was all history from there. Okay, so then, from here, there could be an appeal, right? So this process could, in fact, continue. This isn't necessarily the absolute end of this. We heard you talking about things like they need to put together, obviously, the sentencing paperwork. So there could be more that happens from this point.
Yeah, judgment paperwork, not sentencing. This wasn't criminal, but yeah, there's drafts that go back and forth. Sometimes it's a stipulated judgment, meaning they stipulate to the entry of a judgment that the both parties have worked on. Obviously in line with the verdicts, or there could be some other motion practice before that happens, which will toll time, meaning it'll extend time in which an appeal can be had. But generally speaking, you get 30 days from the entry of judgment. Now, the judgment may not go in for 30 days. So there's plenty of time here for the attorneys to do some practice and figure out what it is and what strategy they want to do. If I see, obviously the party that loses more, today, at least in one claim, is generally the one that will appeal. So that party will probably appeal. And I would imagine that the appeal will mainly be that the burden wasn't met, clear and convincing evidence that the jury didn't apply the actual jury instructions. That's generally what the appeal is probably going to be about. And that's tough because the appellate court will not reweigh the evidence of the trial.
Now, we did hear reactions from Depp and Heard. So Heard kept her eyes down in the courtroom as the verdict was read. Depp was not present in the court. And I heard someone talking about this. They go, they were very upset and they were for Amber Heard and wanting her to win, and just go, it's so crazy that an abuser can be successful and not even show up to court. Well, he was in court for 6 weeks. He was not there today, but he wasn't in fact in court. But in any case, Johnny Depp released a statement saying, the jury gave me my life back. From the very beginning, the goal of bringing this case was to reveal the truth regardless of the outcome. Speaking the truth was something that I owed to my children and to all of those who have remained steadfast in their support of me. He said, I feel at peace knowing that I have finally accomplished that. And then, of course, after court, his attorneys met with the press and thanked them. And again, thanks to the jury, because, the fact that the jury had to sit there for 6 weeks is a lot. And then we did hear from Amber Heard. So in Amber Heard's statement, she said she's heartbroken over the verdict. The disappointment that I feel today, as Amber said, is beyond words. I'm heartbroken that the mountain of evidence that was still not enough to stand up to the disproportionate power, influence, and sway of my ex-husband.
Yeah, that was an interesting statement. And in fact, the question is that defamatory in of itself, that part right there, right? You compare that statement to what was in the Washington Post, which just, lost to the tune of $10 million, $15 million awarded. You wonder if those attorneys looked at that statement and thought, boy, that's getting a little bit close to the statement that we just got sued on and lost here. So interesting statement. But I've had my questions about the Heard team and some of the things that they've done. That was not an appropriate statement, or that's at least a little too risky to put out right after you lose. That exact statement, what you just read. I know there was more, but those sentences were problematic for me.
Yeah, the mountain of evidence was still not enough to stand up to the disproportionate power, influence, and sway of my husband. That's almost to allege that he had some power, influence, and sway over the jury,
Right,
right?
and of course, yeah, and of course, the mountain of evidence was the abuse, right? And so she just lost on that claim and is just basically doubling down with another statement, which actually names, at least in part, Johnny Depp, not by name but by ex-husband. So there's no question that that statement was about him. So
Yeah.
that was a risky statement. That's poor lawyering, in my opinion. You don't put a statement out like that when you just lose.
Yeah, and we imagine that both of these statements were in fact reviewed by the attorneys for each team. Who knows? Maybe Amber Heard did not consult with her counsel. I'm sure you are upset. I'm sure that, of course, when a client is upset, that you probably don't want to speak with the attorney. But who knows?
Well, they hugged after court, or after the verdict. So I mean,
Yeah, I saw that.
who knows? Yeah, but the statement came from the PR teams, right? It didn't come from Ms. Heard. She didn't write that. And in fact, those were prepared. And I would imagine that each party had a statement for a win and a loss. Because those came out minutes after the verdict. So there's no way the length of those statements were written in the 2 minutes and from the time the verdict was written. And yeah, I agree. You would hope that the Heard team would have reviewed her statement. But if they did, that's even worse in my opinion, because they shouldn't have allowed that portion of the statement in. They could have stayed away from that.
Yeah, and with the speed of the internet, you have to be prepared, right? It's almost as if you are nominated to win an award. If you don't win, you don't have to worry about it. If you do win, you're going to have to give a speech, so you need to be prepared because things are going to be very fast moving. Joel wonders, imagine if they rekindle their relationship. We heard significant testimony and questioning about the fact that Johnny Depp had said he would never look at Amber Heard again. So I don't know. I don't know if he's going to go back on his word. And, quite frankly, we've seen some crazy things in family law land. We have seen some crazy situations, even domestic abuse, and we see people getting back together. Despite we see people divorcing multiple times and getting back together.
Right. Never say never, I guess, but we'll wait and see on that. Now that would be a Netflix story.
Yeah, so the fact that Johnny Depp is just shy of 60, I don't think he's done with his career by any means. I think there will be an evolution in his career. So, as far as kind of following now trial, how are we feeling? Let me go back to the comments here. Spike from Facebook. Make sure you guys come over to Top Music Attorney YouTube. Make sure you actually subscribe here. We are broadcasting on multiple platforms, but this is home base. So come and join our community here. It takes a little time because she'll be considered box office poison, but indie films will be an option at some point. Very good point. Personally, I always liked her before this. And look, that's the thing. Someone gets into the news for some bad act, right? Some kind of like a DUI or just something that we as a public can find offensive or intolerable, but they still continue with their career and they still have a career. They still have fans. I'm sure Amber Heard still has fans. All right, Jennifer from Facebook. Oh, good. Nope, good.
Well, I was just going to say, one of the things you got to consider too is that, she does get a gig, then, obviously it's going to get garnished and that money might go to Johnny Depp. So she'll be working basically to pay Johnny.
Yeah, no, I think if anything, Amber probably will want to make nice with Johnny to try to figure out a payment plan or some kind of discounted rate. The people will not forget what she did. Who's going to take a chance, lose money? This is too big. She's done. Maybe. All right, Michael, back from Facebook.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Does Johnny and Amber have to avoid each other for good? What do you think?
Oh, good question. Yeah, no, there's no order saying that they have to stay away from each other. And I don't think there is. I know at one point she went to go get an order of protection in California. Order of protection generally last only a year and you have to renew them. So I don't know if that's been done, but the order of protection would control that. Nothing in this case, in the civil case, states that they have to stay away from each other or there's some sort of no contact. So unless that order of protection somehow would still be in place, or if it was renewed, they can talk to each other and be around each other. Not that I think that would happen, but I'm just saying it's possible.
Never say never. Now, I see some chitty chat going on in the chat section with you guys kind of getting into it. We're not talking about attorneys' looks. We're not talking about opinions on more superficial things. Let's be nice. This is a friendly show. Harley on YouTube, will Johnny be able to collect anything from Amber Heard? I understand that when malice is involved in a judgment, that the defendant cannot absolve the judgment by filing bankruptcy. Okay, let's get into the bankruptcy question. If Amber Heard files for bankruptcy, can she get the judgment discharged?
I've not heard that, the malice thing. I know things like fraud and other claims subject to bankruptcy under two statutes, 526 and 7, or 523 and 727. There are things that are non-dischargeable. I'm not sure if malice is one of those. There's quite a few. I mean, there's like 27 things that are non-dischargeable, I think, in the combination of those statutes. Don't quote me on that exact number, but there are a lot, more than you would think. So I'm not sure if malice is one or not. I'd have to look that up. That was a great question, though.
That is a good question, and that I guess would make sense if it was the case, because of course things like fraud, right, where there is kind of this heightened level of intent, to do some kind of harm, and that there are instances where you cannot have certain judgments discharged as part of the bankruptcy. So great question. Yeah, I don't know. You guys are all getting into it about speaking things. So, I think, how are these attorneys feeling right now? Miss Vasquez and the team for Johnny Depp, of course, I'm sure, are elated. This is like 6+ years of work in the making. And to be an attorney for a losing party, you not only feel that kind of sense of devastation for your client, but you also feel it yourself. That's just what it is. You are in the weeds for sometimes years, if not more. And so I think that, I'd heard that the female attorney for Amber Heard had cried, after closing statements. I'm not surprised by that. I think a lot of attorneys at the close of a huge case will cry, and that's probably a healthier thing than going and drinking yourself into oblivion, like a lot of attorneys might do. And just to feel
Yeah,
kind of an emotional relief.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, yeah, the intensity of trial every single day, even in a couple-day trial, let alone 6 weeks. And then even though you had that week in the middle, you're still on, where that break was, you're still on, you're on, you're on. And then you have the deliberations and the intensity of waiting for the verdict and then the actual verdict. And then you feel that celebratory immediately, but eventually and very soon thereafter, you hit a level of exhaustion because you just get this release. And that's whether you're on the losing side or the winning side. And that exhaustion really kind of overcomes most things. And then all of a sudden, the win or the loss really starts to come in, and you start to feel that a little more. That's been my personal experience.